He could have been commanding legions, giving orders, judging the world. But in the deep hours of the night, Marcus Aurelius did something more powerful. He wrote, alone, quiet, candlelight flickering beside him, the empire resting outside his door. He turned inward. He wasn't trying to conquer another land. He was trying to master himself. That's the image most people forget. The emperor who found his greatest strength not in action, but in stillness. Not in battle, but in reflection. We live in a time where impulse is disguised as personality, and reaction is mistaken for freedom. One click, one swipe, one "I deserve this" later, and your clarity is gone. Every unnecessary purchase, every emotional scroll, every quiet transaction that you don't remember making is a small surrender. Not to poverty, but to noise, and it accumulates, until one day you look at your account, your time, your energy, and realize how much has been traded away for moments you can't even feel anymore. Kahneman explained it through the lens of the mind. System 1 is fast, ancient, impulsive. It's the part that buys when you're tired, speaks when you're hurt, spends when you're bored. System 2 is slower, wise, learned. It pauses, it breathes, it asks why. And the entire journey of financial mastery and emotional freedom begins with learning how to live more from the second system. Not to kill the impulse, but to notice it, to honor it without obeying it. And that's where the exhaustion comes from. Not from being undisciplined, but from never being taught how to pause. From a life of reaction where every financial choice is a flicker, not a decision. You're not weak. You're just wired for speed in a world that never taught you stillness. But that can change. That must change. Think of an archer. The power is not in how tight the bow is pulled. It's in the moment before the release, the breath, the silence, the perfect alignment of will, intention, and aim. That's what Stoic self-control feels like. Not tension, but direction. Not force, but grace. And if your financial life feels out of control, chaotic, random, this isn't about shame. It's about reclaiming that breath, that pause, that silent place where decisions return to meaning. If you've ever wondered why you keep spending on what you don't truly want, or why control feels like punishment instead of peace, stay with this. Like, comment, subscribe. This may be the first time you learn how to truly aim your life again. Next, we enter step 1. It starts before you notice. A moment of boredom in the checkout line. A flicker of stress between meetings. An ad. A tap. A cart filled before your inner voice even speaks. And what's inside that cart is not just products. It's unmet needs, forgotten conversations, cravings with no name. This is the cost of automation. You didn't choose it. It was chosen for you, by repetition, by habit, by unseen loops of cue, behavior, reward. The philosopher inside you, the one who longs for alignment, peace, virtue, gets drowned out by the noise of routine. We're not overspending because we're greedy. We're overspending because we're triggered. We think it's about willpower, but it's about awareness, because you cannot resist what you haven't yet seen. The Amazon cart is rarely full of need. It's often full of unspoken emotion, frustration, loneliness, stress, comparison. Behavioral science confirms it. Most of our actions are driven by cue-triggered loops. A feeling, a scroll, a reward. A pattern repeated until it becomes identity. But you are not the pattern. You are the pause that breaks it. And that begins with a sentence. A single line that interrupts the rush of impulse and brings you back to yourself. Write this on paper. Keep it on your phone. Say it out loud when temptation stirs. Is this me or my mood buying? That question does not accuse. It observes. And in observation, the spell breaks. Suddenly, what felt urgent now feels transparent. What felt like a reward reveals itself as a reflex, and you are back in the driver's seat. One client didn't start with cutting spending. He started with cutting access. He deleted all shopping apps from his phone, not because he was punishing himself, but because he realized his time, his clarity, was leaking by the hour. The result? He didn't just save money, he gained 6 hours a week of silence. And in that silence, something beautiful emerged. Choice. You don't need to punish yourself to reclaim your power. You just need to disrupt the rhythm long enough to listen. Control begins with one line, one breath, one interruption. That's where silence begins to grow. That's where the war with impulse starts to shift. From noise to noticing. From automatic to aware. Step 2. Translate emotion into language. Most of us were never taught how to feel. We were taught how to suppress, how to distract, how to move on, but not how to name. Not how to listen to the soft voice beneath the urge. And so, when desire comes, not noble desire, but restless hunger, we try to silence it by spending. We buy not because we want, but because we don't know what we're feeling. This is how emotion, when left unspoken, becomes expensive. Repression doesn't free you. It compresses you. It stores the noise until it explodes. And impulse? It's often just emotion trying to escape without words. Epictetus warned, "First, understand what disturbs you. Before you cast judgment on a craving, investigate it, not with suspicion, with compassion. Desire isn't the enemy, but desire unlabeled becomes a tyrant, dragging your wallet and your peace behind it. That's why the most powerful financial tool isn't a calculator. It's a journal, not a place to track amounts, but to name emotions. To write down, gently and honestly, the feeling that sat behind the purchase. Not the item, the ache, boredom, resentment, loneliness, ego, fear of missing out, wanting to belong, wanting to be seen. These are not sins. They are signals, and once you name the storm, you can steer through it. A storm unnamed swallows the ship, but when you say its name, this is anxiety, this is grief, this is my father's voice in my head telling me I'm behind, it loses control, because now you are the captain again. Language gives shape, shape gives space, space gives choice, and that's what self-control truly is. Not the suppression of feeling, but the slowing down of action until the soul can speak. When you track your emotional patterns, not just your spending patterns, you begin to notice the things you bought were trying to replace something sacred. Presence, rest, safety, approval. Your job isn't to ban desire. Your job is to decode it, to sit quietly with it, as a teacher. And in that practice, spending becomes less a reaction and more a reflection. Not who you were in the moment, but who you are becoming. Step 3. Reframe control as alignment. There's a quiet mistake we make, again and again. We treat self-control like self-punishment. As if restraint is a penalty, not a pathway. As if saying no is a sign of lack, instead of a declaration of clarity. But Stoicism flips the script. Marcus Aurelius, with all the weight of an empire on his shoulders, wrote with piercing simplicity, "If it's not right, don't do it. If it's not true, don't say it." He didn't frame discipline as restriction. He framed it as integrity, a return to form, a return to self. Control, then, isn't about squeezing harder. It's about realignment. It's the act of coming back into character. Not the performance kind, but the ethical kind. Who do you want to be when no one is watching? Who is that version of you that wakes rested, breathes slowly, spends with care, speaks with kindness? That version is not far. It's just quiet. An impulse is loud. So ask yourself, in the moments when temptation rises, when your finger hovers over "buy now," when your mind whispers, "you've earned it," would the calm, sovereign version of you say yes? the one who isn't tired, the one who isn't proving anything, the one who has nothing to prove, only something to preserve. If the answer is no, then hold your hand and breathe. There's a reason the Stoics spoke in sculpture. They understood that to become something meaningful, you must chip away at what is not. The sculptor doesn't hate the stone, he respects it. And each time he strikes it, he is not punishing the marble. He is revealing the figure beneath. That is what self-control is, not self-denial, but self-reveal. Every no to impulse is a yes to shape, to intention, to design. You are not depriving yourself, you are defining yourself. One choice at a time, one pause at a time. Not to be smaller, but to be solid. Not to impress, but to align. Control, when rooted in character, doesn't make you rigid, it makes you real. And in a world built to distract, that's a quiet kind of revolution. What if the impulse wasn't your enemy? What if it was your teacher? We often feel ashamed of our temptations, as if the presence of craving means the absence of character. But the Stoics didn't fear desire. They studied it. They treated every emotional flare, every moment of wanting as a signal, not to suppress, but to understand. The goal was never to feel less. The goal was to notice faster, choose better, recalibrate with more grace. Each impulse is a window into what you value, into what still hurts, into where you're still unguarded. That late-night scroll isn't failure, it's feedback. That unplanned spending isn't weakness, it's a whisper from your unmet needs. And once you trade judgment for curiosity, you step into training. You're no longer punishing yourself, you're preparing yourself. One woman used to buy things online almost nightly. Small things, makeup she didn't wear, tools she didn't use. The packages made her feel seen, like someone somewhere was sending her something. But the truth behind her habit wasn't greed, it was loneliness. So instead of cutting the habit cold, she redirected it. Every time she felt the urge to scroll and spend, she opened a journal, wrote what she wished someone would say to her. Within a month, she hadn't just saved money. She recovered space. In her mind, her evenings, her identity. That's what self-mastery looks like. Not in the absence of triggers, but in what you do with them. Do you react, or do you retrain? Do you scold the spend, or study it? This is not about perfection. This is about pattern, about seeing the places you fall, and returning with more insight, not more guilt. Create your own map, a grid, a tracker. Write down your top 5 triggers each week, not to shame yourself, but to see yourself. What time do they appear? What emotion surrounds them? What story do they tell? Then, slowly, quietly, you rewire. Not in a day, but over time, the same way a tree bends toward the light. Not through force, but through consistency. This is the work. Not to eliminate desire, but to elevate your awareness. You become fluent in your own psychology. You stop being surprised by yourself. And in that familiarity, you reclaim what so many people lose, the right to respond with wisdom instead of reacting from pain. You are not your impulse. You are the observer of it, the one who sees it rise, feels it swell, and still pauses long enough to choose. That space, the space between feeling and action, is where your freedom lives. And the Stoics knew, long before neuroscience caught up, that the goal of life was not to dominate desire with brute force, but to refine it through reflection. Marcus Aurelius didn't erase his impulses. He clarified them. He named them, shaped them, placed them in context, and then responded not as a slave, but as a sovereign. Self-control, then, isn't a battlefield. It's a tuning process. It's not about silencing your emotions. It's about bringing them into harmony with your highest values. And to do that, you need the 4 Stoic virtues, not as abstractions, but as tools. You need the courage to pause before you react. You need the wisdom to name what's really driving your urge. You need the temperance to delay gratification without shame. And you need the justice to realign your actions with what serves not just your pleasure, but your peace. Impulse promises relief. Character delivers renewal. Warren Buffett once said, "You can't trust impulse to make sound financial decisions, because impulse only sees the now. Character sees the long arc, the one that moves not with panic, but with patience." And the best financial choices you'll make may never feel exciting. They may feel boring, simple, unremarkable. That's how you know they're right. So before you judge yourself for wanting, remember, the want is human. The pause is divine. In that pause is the real wealth, the kind you don't spend, but become. This video is for educational purposes only. Always consider your circumstances with care. If today's message helped you see your spending, your cravings, your control in a new light, comment silence below. Like, subscribe, and stay close to this channel. There's more wisdom ahead. And remember, your calm is worth protecting. Let silence be your new strength.